Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Cool. Is it smooth? Is like the stream going well? Because the last time I tried this, Tudes said that it was choppy. So I'm on my campus Wi-Fi right now. Campus Wi-Fi. Oh, awesome. Awesome. There's probably a delay, so if it takes me a minute to respond, that's why. And yeah, oh, cool. So I am trying to get a little bit into live streaming. Cool. I'm trying to get a little bit into live streaming, just sort of create more of, I don't know, I feel like I might be good at that. And I want to sort of tackle like current news and stuff and give my opinions, my humble opinions. And I'm still going to do some video essays, but I'm finding those are taking a long time for me to do, and I want to have more regular content. So yeah, so today I'm just sort of going over some stuff that I've been uh, retweeting. If you want me to look at something as well, this is like basically political streaming, um, is what I'm going to be doing. So if you have something that's like a hot topic that you would like me to look at and comment on, that's what's going to happen, basically. Cool. Yeah, so right now, the last thing I tweeted out was this is actually really interesting. Unicorn Riot is covering, and I think people involved in Unicorn Riot have actually are part of actually this lawsuit, and it's a lawsuit against the organizers of the Unite the Right rally from back in 2017. Um, and so they've been like covering this, and it's like interesting. I'm like, there's not really much I can say yet about it because it's only just starting. Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting, right? It's only just starting, and the jury is being vetted. So they're doing a bunch of interviews and stuff with the jury. Um, but yeah, Unicorn Riot is like one of my favorite news news groups. They're not like mainstream media at all, and they do have a very heavy bias. But you know, all news is biased, and so I find Unicorn Riot's bias very refreshing in that it gives you a very different approach to understanding what's going on. Um, the judge presiding over the case is Judge Moon. I'm not a I'm not like super familiar with U.S. law. I'm not even really super familiar with Canadian law outside of a few things that I know personally. But yeah, it's very like it's going to be very different compared to like Canadian law. This is going to be like we're not going to be able to see this and be like, oh, this could happen in Canada the same way. So it's like, but it's still like really influential because like yeah, because like it's a bunch of Nazis getting sued for causing the Unite the Right rally and the violence in it. And actually, like, so previously, I'm not going to look for it, but you can look for it if you want. I've been following this a little bit. So the reason why this took so long to go to court is because a number of people were collecting evidence. There were a number of people who were actually in chat rooms that the organizers, the fascist organizers, were taking part in during the initial organizing of the event, and I guess since then. So this court case is actually going to reveal a lot of like, hopefully, it will reveal a lot of communications that show what Unicorn Riot claims is that these communications show an actual like understanding that violence could happen and an intent to allow that to happen. What's really funny, it's not funny. None of this is funny, but it's kind of like like dark humor, haha, is some of the questioning of the jurors from the lawyers of the fascists is like asking the jurors if they are Antifa. And Judge Moon, from what I've read before, Judge Moon is actually like being like, yeah, like, you know, Antifa probably had a big hand in the violence. It's like, um, yeah, Antifa isn't a group. Uh, if you've ever heard of Antifa, it's a shorthand for anti-fascism, and so anti-fascism is an approach. It's a set of like ideological. It's like it's an ideology of how to address fascism, which is bad. I think we can all agree that fascism is bad. So yeah, so anti-fascism is just like street medics at protests are anti-fascist actions, right? Like food not bombs, like feeding the homeless. That's anti-fascist. There's a bunch of like people who hold anti-fascist ideologies, and the way they approach it is by like growing food in their yard, right? Like this is what like yeah, and like there are some tactics that promote things that not everyone is not everyone agrees with, but yeah, 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 yeah. I'm not I'm I just think it's hilarious that the judge is actually like, yeah, obviously like Antifa committed violence. It's like who who even is Antifa? Yeah, the U.S. government has actually been like acting as if Antifa is an actual organization, which says like a whole lot about the how much one can trust that institution to understand what's actually going on. So that's Unicorn Riot. Um, I guess I should like read more. I'm really bad at this. I'll get better at it. So please stay tuned. And yeah, everything else so far has basically been like a lot of, what do you call that? There's a lot of trans hate going on right now in the news. Yeah, Halifax, Nova Scotia has a wacky plan for homelessness that is like not. I'm skeptical about it, and it's showing to be a bit like unmanaged kinds of stuff. But like honestly, the stuff with in Canada, the news that's been coming out about like all these gender critical perspectives are being platformed is pretty distressing. But I'm gonna try and build up some trans rights organizing, and you should too. Uh, yeah, LGBT Alliance had a conference. This is funny. Can we hear this?
Identity extremists, and this is something I see a lot. And is there such a thing as a gender identity moderate? I don't think there is. And I think
Yeah. So yeah. So that's audio from the LGBT Alliance conference. Um, it's wacky. They had Graham Linehan there, and like all of them are sort of ignoring the fact that Graham Linehan was at the LGBT Alliance conference. Um, and it's a lot of there's all kinds of rhetoric coming out. I saw this one tweet, someone reshared someone's Facebook post about this one woman was like so upset that at the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual Alliance conference, that gay men were talking about their sexuality. And just like she was really so upset, and she was like, no woman would ever talk about that. Like, they shouldn't talk about that to a mostly woman audience. And it's like, that's like if LGBT Alliance was actually about lesbian, gay, and bisexual people, that would be what you would expect to hear. From there would be like gay men talking about their experiences, lesbians talking about their experiences, bisexual people talking about their experiences. Like that seems reasonable and rational, but no, no, it's like pretty explicitly a hate group. Um, yeah, Judith Butler. They also posted a Guardian article, and the Blood and Turf podcast is has done a big analysis of it, which is really great. It's a great article by Butler and a great podcast, and I really recommend that if you don't know who they are. Uh, they're also currently analyzing a truckload of audio and data, like recordings from the LGB Alliance conference, and they're going to do an episode on that. They said they're like overall they're looking at like a very long podcast episode on it, multiple hours. We're talking like a day's work just listening to the podcast. But it's a really good podcast, and I really recommend it. So you should check out Blood and Turf hashtag uh, and follow them on Twitter. Check them out. Um, yeah, so I really hope that this analysis gets a little popular because they're really good at analyzing stuff, and so I really expect them to do well on that. Yeah, I only have like 15 more minutes before I gotta go. This is kind of just a test run, so I'm not gonna go super deep into anything in particular. But like moving forward, if I do more live streams, let me know what you want me to talk about on the live stream. I'll go a little deeper into stuff in the future. This is kind of a test run. Um, and yeah, even like while on the live stream, like chat, like send me links to stuff, whatever you want, as long as it's like acceptable for like YouTube viewing. No mature content that will get me banned is what I'm saying. I'll vet any links that I get sent. Hey, how's it going? How's it going, Jamie? Jamie one half, James Baker. Thanks for stopping by to my test run for my live stream. This will be saved, and I'll like make a playlist for these. Oh, interesting. Oh, I might start bringing my better microphone with me. It's probably literally my laptop. Uh, not really sure what's up with that, but thank you for letting me know. Audio. I have a really nice mic though, so I'll like bring that along with me in the future, so I can set it up when I have this space to do this. And I'm gonna plan ahead to make sure I actually do have the space to do this. Yeah. Oh, this is really interesting. I actually haven't read this. I want to read this, so I'm gonna spend the rest of this time reading this article. And it's from the Walrus. Uh, the author is who's the author? Matthew Halliday, and the photography is by Chris Donovan. And so this article is called New Brunswick's Mystery Disease. Why did the province shut out federal experts? This is really interesting. New Brunswick has some wacky stuff going on that I've been told about by New Brunswickers that I'm not going to talk about here because it's like, it, it's just ridiculous. I also really recommend checking out the Dynasties episode on the Irvings, and reading up a little bit on how the Irvings basically own New Brunswick. It's absolutely corrupt, to say lightly. It's fascinating how that has developed, and it's really horrible as well. But like 90%, I've heard that. Don't quote me on this, but like look it up yourself. I've heard that the stat is about 90% of workers in New Brunswick work for the Irvings. Not sure if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, so it says in January 2020, Alier Marrero, a neurologist in Moncton, New Brunswick, began examining a patient he'd been referred, an 18-year-old woman named Gabrielle Cormier from Dalhousie Junction, a small town in the province's far north. Her case was bewildering. As a high school student, she started to have difficulty reading, especially on computer screens where letters appeared hazy and indistinct. By grade 12 in 2019, her concentration flagged and she was losing strength in her lower body. A few months after graduating, she collapsed at school. An ER doctor chalked it up to a panic attack. That's, I'm going to pause here for a second. That's such a big thing when, like, women and anyone who's, like, gender variant from a cis man, like, absolutely, like, this idea of hysteria is, like, really common and it's, like, extremely pervasive and often when like women we like face like ignorance from our medical community and we don't get the support we need. um, Over the summer they turned a sickly gray. In the fall, while studying biology at New Brunswick's Mount Allison University, Cormier felt her disorientation and mental fog worsening, and her exhaustion grew debilitating. That winter, Marrero performed a gauntlet of exams, cognition tests, memory tests, blood tests, and scans, including EEG, MRI, VEP, and SPECT, SPECT, a nuclear imaging test in which a radioactive tracer is injected into the bloodstream. I don't know what most of those are, so that sounds very intense. By then, Cormier was having difficulty walking and her vision problems had turned hallucinatory, a fluctuating field across her line of sight that she compares to TV static. Uh, on Valentine's Day of 2020, Cormier underwent a spinal tap for signs of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. So that's colloquially known as mad cow, but it is like that's a it's a very serious prion disease. A fatal, I do know about that a little bit. A fatal, swiftly developing disorder caused when brain proteins called prions, oh, it explains it, misfold into an abnormal form. Cormier's spinal fluid came back clean of CJD, however, as did other tests, with two exceptions: an EEG showing diminishing electrical activity in the brain, and a SPECT showing reduced cerebral blood flow. Both suggested neurological impairment, but neither pointed by itself to any known illness. Baffling as it was, Cormier's condition was familiar to Marrero, a Cuban-born neurologist. He had worked in Moncton since 2012, and in recent years he'd seen more and more patients, often unusually young, equally men and women. So it's not a like it's not discriminating based on gender, displaying bizarre, I don't like that word, but signs of neurological decline. Um, in many cases, the symptoms developed with excruciating speed but began almost inconspicuously with behavioral changes, sleep disturbances, or inexplicable pain. So I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here, but this is like really serious. Um, this is such a serious issue in New Brunswick. The fact that like it's only happening in New Brunswick though, like that's the thing. Um, Yeah, it says because they ticked so many boxes associated with CJD, each case was reported to the Ottawa-based Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease surveillance system, which was set up in 1998 by the Public Health Agency of Canada in the aftermath of the UK's outbreak of variant CJD, more commonly known as mad cow disease, caused by prion-tainted beef, which ultimately killed at least 178 people. Um, So in late 2019 and early 2020, as Marrero was working with Cormier and other patients, he and PHAC scientists came to believe that they may be looking at a distinct, previously undescribed neurological disease. They took the extraordinary step of grouping the undiagnosed cases together as the cluster of progressive neurological symptoms of unknown etiology in New Brunswick. On March 5th, the province Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Health sent a memo to provincial physicians urging them to watch for symptoms. So this is like really like from what I've read before, this is only happening in New Brunswick, and like that is a concerning thing, right? So like if it's only happening in New Brunswick, like my brain thinks, well, that's probably not an like it's probably not a genetic thing then, right? It's environmental if it's like localizing in a specific space. So is it like a bacteria? Is it something that humans are doing to the environment? Right? So these are the questions that come up in my head, and like I haven't seen any answers on it yet. Um, and then of course on March 18th, CBC reported the memo. Um, So in April, March Strong, a neuropathologist and the president of the Canadian Institute of Health Research, told the Globe and Mail that the medical mystery demanded boots on the ground. Epidemiological investigators conducted in-person field research, and later that spring, a concerted response started to coalesce. As with most matters related to health outbreaks, response in Canada falls under provincial jurisdiction. But in this case, New Brunswick asked the PHAC for help. Federal colleagues began assembling a nationwide working group, which eventually numbered about 24. That's that's a lot of people working on that. It included Michael Colhart, head of the. So I'm going to skip this. Definitely check out those medical professionals. By then, a posting on the program of the Monitoring Emergencies Diseases, a global outbreak monitoring system, publicized the first case of SARS and Ebola had brought the illness to global attention. Experts from Johns Hopkins University and the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic reached out. As rapidly as the cluster had appeared, so did the expertise to combat it. That's great. Then on June 3rd, New Brunswick abruptly changed track. The province told the emerging national working group to stand down. That's like, why? The investigation was pulled up to the highest level of the New Brunswick government, and they took control. I'm like not think that seems weird. Um, so that's what the senior scientists are saying, who is intimately familiar with the workings of the PHAC investigation and has asked for anonymity, claiming federal scientists have been muzzled by federal health authorities at the request of the province. Cashman declined to speak for this story, indicating that he needed clearance from the New Brunswick government. Strong was permitted by the CIHR to speak only if the conversation avoided New Brunswick and instead focused on cluster epidemiology in general. The New Brunswick government didn't announce its suspension of the federal collaboration at the time. Instead, what the province has done is create its own oversight committee composed of 6 provincially appointed neurologists, none of whom appear to possess the epidemiological experience in neuropathology skills essential for investigating a cluster of this complexity. So I'm like curious, like what would be the impetus for the province to shut that down and make it a local jurisdiction thing, right? Like they have the legal right to do it, but like clearly they don't have the skills. Like they don't have anyone locally with the proper skills to tackle this, and so that makes me concerned. Like the things that I would look for, like why is a province behaving this way? Is there a financial risk to like taxes or um, to generally like it could outsourcing that be a problem for the province itself, like financially, or is there like a political risk? Like what could the politics be? Like what is it wouldn't make sense for a neurological condition to be a bad political issue, right? Um, so like that doesn't really make sense that they've backtracked this. So there must be some kind of money issue at hand because that's often like the things that politicians give a shit about is, are they going to win the next election and like the budget, right? That's like the most common things. Um, the committee mandate, according to the June 3rd news release, is to provide second opinions on the files of affected patients in order to ensure due diligence and rule out other potential causes. In other words, rather than collaborating with the country's top experts in a method, method, methodical, robustly funded investigation aimed at digging into potential causes, the province has put its most modest resource towards re- relitigating the question already addressed by the PHAC scientists, whether this is a true disease cluster linked by a common cause. Since June, a pall of secrecy has descended over the committee's work, and federal collaborators have been left largely in the dark right before the provinces unilaterally suspended its relationship with the PHAC. 48 cases were being investigated, with 39 confirmed, 6 of which had proven fatal. So that's like a big point there. As of this writing, the provincial government hasn't issued any updates on current patients or provided information about additional cases under investigation. Um, this journalist made multiple requests to speak with the province. So they say this isn't necessarily unexpected. New Brunswick's provincial elite in both government and business has a long history of withholding information from its citizens. But some of the highly regarded epidemiologists and neurologists I spoke to for this story agreed that whatever the province's motivations, the cluster isn't being tackled with the urgency it deserves. We have an unbelievably capable set of tools to look at biological and epidemiological and environmental characteristics, says the senior scientist of the expertise being inexplicably sidelined. It's amazing the potential that is not being tapped by spurning the help. New Brunswick appears to be abdicating its responsibility to the sick, to the public, and to the medical science itself. Um, Neurologists and epidemiologists have long flocked to the unusual disease cluster, drawn by the prospect of discoveries that can shed light on afflictions affecting millions of people, such as Alzheimer's or ALS. Um, So there's a lot of potential in studying this. Obviously, like you can, like studying a new disease is good for the people who have that disease, and it's good for understanding diseases in general. Wow, what a shock! You can't solve this with questionnaires, says Herman Schatzel, a Calgary-based expert on animal prion disease, who was consulted last year by the PHAC on the then burgeoning investigation. Months ago, he anticipated a research call centered on New Brunswick, bringing together experts in multiple fields. No such thing emerged. Another aspect of field work not underway is environmental testing for neurotoxins in food, water, and soil. So that is like, yeah, if we're going to do, that would be like an environmental like effect. Like I was saying earlier, that's something that would be important to check, because like if this disease is localized in New Brunswick, like it what part of the environment is causing that, right? Um, if we're going to do essays on the food web, then we need to do it before people get sick, not after. Um, okay, I'm getting a notice on my thing that I actually do have like an audio bit rate issue. So I'll work on that next time. Um, Merch was contacted by federal authorities this spring as a possible participant in the investigation. Her expertise lies in a certain amino acids that are theorized to kickstart neurodegeneration. She was instrumental in suggesting a possible link between the guan disease, and an amino acid called BMAA, which is present in the seeds of the island's cicad trees. BMAA can also, yeah, we'll move on. Murch's lab at UBC's Okanagan campus is the only one in the country capable of testing for BMAA in human tissues. Initial discussions with the PHAC fell silent, however, after New Brunswick asked its federal counterparts to stand aside. Hey, dude, yeah, I'm on campus, so I'm gonna try. Apparently my audio sucks, so I'm gonna try and work on that. And like I said before, like if you want me to cover anything in my live streams, they're gonna be like political streams. I'm covering the New Brunswick neurological disease cluster that's like in the news again right now, because I find it really fascinating just to see the way that New Brunswick itself is behaving politically around this, and like I think it's terrible that like it's like these individuals who are suffering this are now like being impacted by this political move. Um, yeah, so maybe the most crucial aspect of this kind of investigation. But yeah, if you ever want me to like cover anything, like just like tweet at me, comment on my videos, send a link in the live stream chat, whatever you want. I'm only going to be here for another like 10 minutes or so. Not even actually, like 5 minutes. I got to get ready to get out of this space. I only have it booked for another 15 right now. Maybe the most crucial aspect of this kind of investigation, according to experts, is open communication. This is a cornerstone of the approach recommended by the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention in its step-by-step guide to outbreak investigation. And as this article said earlier, New Brunswick has a history of not being open, not having open communication, which is like deeply concerning. New Brunswick has a long history of corruption, so that is like obviously playing into this. And it's just curious to it'll be curious to see why, because I feel like this is something that really needs to be focused on. People should pay attention to this because whatever's going on to make the New Brunswick government want to not talk, I'm sure that would be very effective in addressing their sort of political issues and their transparency issues in the future, as well as like a lot of people. There's almost 50 people. Some of them have like passed away from this neurological disease who should get proper care. Um, yeah, on May 8th, 77-year-old Sylvia Curtis, who according to her daughter was a confirmed case under Marrero's care, died after a swift 3-month decline. If the syndrome is responsible, she would be the 7th dead. The official number, however, still stands at 6. Yeah, yeah, Jason Kenney is like absolutely a well worth punchline any time. If you ever see something funny about Jason Kenney, send it my way, and I will laugh at him about it. Yeah, no, I know. Conservative takes Jason Kenney too seriously. I don't know why. He's a huge joke. Um, but it's like, hey, you hear about Jason Kenney? But it's um, yeah. So New Brunswick's recording of deaths and case numbers hasn't like risen. Um, but I guess the PHRC actually, or I guess the investigation though, they have over 100 patients. So like the official record says about 50, but they have over 100 patients. That's like, yeah, that's yeah. I've heard that the phones seem to be fine, but like for some reason on desktop it's having an issue for my sound. Yeah, so I don't think I have time to really cover the rest of this article because I really got to go. I'll try to set this up. Let's see what the last little. So they're basically the last chunk. It's basically talking about that they need like communication. Uh, New Brunswick has long exhibited a penchant of paternalism and secrecy on matters of public health, and there's no shortage of high-profile examples. For years, Parley Beach, a bustling summertime attraction near the tourist town of Shediac, was plagued by sewage dumping and high E. coli counts. The province eventually devise a unique water testing system that undercounted fecal contaminants. A 2017 CBC investigation revealed that the system was largely intended to ensure that the beach and the Shediac area economy remained open and humming. And as I said earlier, if you rewatch this stream, yeah, economics, money, it's always what it's about. Um, so that'd be interesting to see if maybe this neurological disease is again a side effect of something that's happening in the province, and the province doesn't want to hurt their economy. So New Brunswick is terrible. I feel really bad for all the folks who are suffering because of that government. Um, and like I, yeah. So thanks for tuning in to my test stream today. Obviously, this works on campus, so I'm going to keep doing this on campus as often as possible. But I really do got to go. I only have this room booked for another 10 minutes, so I got to pack up and get out of here. I'll bring my microphone so I have better sound next time. Um, and yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. Yeah, you too. Cheers.